Well, good Friday morning. It is so exciting to be here. We welcome you, Mobile, and thank you for joining us for our first ever Echo Stop Live podcast. My name's Kevin, and I'm here with my really good friend, Curtis. Welcome.
How's everybody doing?
Well, I hope they're doing good. Curtis, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's Friday.
Well, it is Friday. It is Friday, but before we move on with the rest of our day, we really want to take a little bit of time and just talk to the community, talk to the people who have a vested interest in all of the things that are happening in our community, and really talk about Echo Stop. Talk about the Four Corners, Curtis.
Yes, we want to talk about the Four Corners because a lot of people don't know what the Four Corners are. And it's about prevention, deterrence, compliance, and detection.
And that's interesting because there's, all different aspects that have to be considered. And I think that's really what's different about how we're approaching the problem we have. I think traditionally what we've done in the past hasn't worked exactly the way we wanted it. And I think the ability for us to kind of step back for a second and really examine what we've done and what we need to do is super important. And along those lines, what's really cool about a live podcast, Curtis, you know what that is?
What is it, Kevin?
We can also answer live email questions. And so if you have an opportunity or sit in front of your computer or your phone and have access, obviously if you're watching us live, you hopefully do.
But be nice. No, not. Yes.
Well, you can. It's echostoplive at gmail.com. That is echostoplive at gmail.com. That's our email address, and we will try to take at least one or two questions every episode. And we'll also be taking some breaks through the podcast and going out to the community and watching some videos. Today we have something super special planned for that little break, Curtis. I know you're super excited. I can just tell.
You can see it on my face, right?
I can see it on your face.
Excited.
You are. You're quite the quite the excited character this morning, which is good.
Oh, my goodness.
But let's talk for a minute on a serious note about what really started this idea. But first, Curtis, the Four Corners. I mean, everybody thinks of police as sort of the deterrence piece,
right?
In being out there, and the police themselves are different. But deterrence actually happens long before that.
Absolutely, it really does. It starts at the very root of the community, and doing those things in the community, not just law enforcement doing things in the community, but the community doing things in the community that help to deter crime.
So when we say Four Corners, if you're kind of thinking of the box, and we really throw away the box because we have to break the mold of what we've been doing, you're talking about prevention,
absolutely,
deterrence, compliance, and detection. Now, some folks locally here maybe have been watching the news and they've heard about some new technology. I know ShotSpotter's been thrown around as a topic of discussion, and it is such a valuable tool. But I think the importance of really talking about the Four Corners in every direction, what we're really talking about is how we are combating a significant problem with more than significant tools and technology. And the biggest resource in all of that isn't something that we can buy. It's actually something that we have to negotiate through relationships. And that really is partnering with the community, advocating for participation from the community. Curtis, this I know falls into your heart and soul of why we even started Echo Stop.
It does. It's the holistic approach, or the collective impact approach, Kevin. And that is that in order to truly actually impact change, to make change happen, it has to come from different corners of the city, of the community, not just law enforcement, not just public education, not just public health, but the people who live in our city every day. It takes all of us.
$1 million question, but I've only got about $1.
Okay, you're out of luck then.
No, okay. Well, I want $1 million answer. I mean, who is responsible for fixing the issues that we see? I mean, this is something people say, like, who has ownership in making Mobile the safest city that it can be?
We all do. Everyone, not just law enforcement. A lot of people think law enforcement is the end all to every solution, but it's not. It is the community, people in the community every day, those who see it and experience crime before law enforcement even gets on the scene. We want to stop crime before it happens. That's the whole point of law enforcement, right?
I think so. And I'm excited to be here with you having this podcast, because this is truly an opportunity that we have to engage with the community in a meaningful way. And I know I've got Curtis on rare form today, but
You do.
I do. But the reality of it is, we want to have those conversations, whether they're conventional and traditional or they're non-conventional and non-traditional. We want to have the true, honest conversation where we can find out what we can do, and we also need to help. You said it takes everybody.
It takes everyone, man.
But truly, it takes all of us. That's what we've been really standing behind. When you see or hear EchoStop, it's probably not far behind it that you hear somebody say it takes all of us, and it truly does. So I'm glad that you brought that up. This idea started. What are some of the things that we're looking at here in the community when it comes to prevention and deterrence?
Well, I think it all starts with dialogue. We have to actually get out and we have to talk to the community, but the community has to talk to us. And we're trying to make every effort possible to do that because we want to hear from you. We want to know what your concerns are. We want to know what can we do to help you make your community safer.
Well, I have something that might come as a surprise to you. You may already know the answer to this.
Bring it on.
Well, I think a lot of people think that our biggest problem is the violence itself, and there's certainly an issue with the violence. Any violent act is one too many. But,
Absolutely.
But what I've found, Curtis, in talking with people and looking through the data is that we have a bigger perception problem. And so when we say impeding violence and improving perception, shouldn't everybody have a right to feel safe in their home?
Absolutely, Kevin. It doesn't matter where you live. Everyone, regardless of their income, their social status, should feel safe in their homes. But it's incumbent on not just law enforcement to help make that happen, but they have to also do that. So we want to talk about those things. What can they do, but what can we do also to work together to improve safety?
Yeah, and I agree, and I've said this for a while. I personally believe everybody should have a right to walk from their house to their mailbox and back to their house again and feel safe. And that's not just something we say. That could actually be the measure of what we use to decide how much we're making a significant impact, because until everybody can walk from their house to their mailbox and back to their house again and feel safe, not just be safe, but feel safe, then we truly have to keep having these conversations. And I think that is one area where we're really going to get to have some good conversations on this podcast.
I agree. It starts with the communication, and this podcast is our initial attempt in doing a podcast that will allow us to bring information to the public, but at the same time have the public bring information to us.
Well, you know how we can do that?
How?
We can bring members of the community to the podcast.
That's a great idea.
I think we should look at those types of things. I know we have some guests scheduled coming down the road in this podcast, as much as people might enjoy just hearing from you and I, Curtis. We'll bring some other voices and some other faces on here. But I think as we move forward, I think we're going to hear some more voices from the community. And along those lines, we have something pretty special about Uniting Mobile, because Mobile is a united place.
That it is, and we should make sure we work on improving that every day.
Mobile is known for a lot of great things. It's the birthplace of America's original Mardi Gras, the home of 5 MLB Hall of Famers. And on New Year's Eve, we dropped the world's largest movie car. But beyond that, we are a community with the power to unite. What's the heart of any community? Unity. That's why we must all stand up against youth gun violence. Join the movement.
It takes all of us. So I was thinking the other day about what
you were thinking. Really?
I was thinking. I try to do that once in a while, Curtis. But I honestly was really reflecting on the reason behind what's going on here, the efforts to make our community better, and I see such progress, which is amazing. But this one really complicated question came to mind.
What's that?
Well, I get to ask it to you, so now you have to give me a
I got you. You would do that to me, right?
Yes, you get the complicated
It's Friday.
question.
You know it's Friday, right? Okay, so
It
maybe
is.
a delay in my response, but go ahead.
Well, here's the question. Why?
Why not?
Okay.
You like that?
I do. That was a good response. But really, why? What's the why behind this? I had somebody ask me that question one time. I was doing a presentation, and somebody said, "Why Mobile?" And I really thought about the question and the way it was asked, and I took it to heart, because why not is the exact answer that I gave. And so, why Mobile? Why not Mobile? So we're here. This is an amazing place. The canvas has been drawn. The stage has been set. Now we're actually having these conversations. We're putting things into motion. We work in a great city. We have an amazing police department that truly cares about its city. But we also have a great community that truly cares about its city. And so for you, Curtis, why? Why are we involved in EchoStop? Why are you drawn to making this change and this difference in the community?
I I think one of the reasons why is that safety is paramount, and it should be in everyone's life, regardless of where they live. I've said that before, but I keep saying that because it's true. We have to care about our neighbor, but our neighbor has to also care about us. And we have to make sure that we are trying to work as hard as we can in improving outcomes for families, because our city is only as strong as its weakest community. And, every city has problems. We all do. Every city has a problem. And it's all driven by issues of safety or the concern for safety, the perception of what safety looks like. We want to make sure that we are working very aggressively in trying to address all those concerns that our community has.
And I think that's it. You talk about the different concerns. There's a lot of concerns when you have a lot of voices. A lot of people are saying different things. And really what I want to focus, what I hope the focus moving forward is that we take all of the voices and we turn them into action items that we can do to make places safer. And we sort of don't just hear noise, but we actually see progress. And I feel like when the police department starts utilizing some of the new technology that we have some great new technology,
right.
But we also remind our community that the technology alone is not the solution and that it's not a substitute for the hear something, say something. As a matter of fact, along those lines, I have another surprise. I know it's just loaded up with surprises this morning. Are you ready for this one?
Bring it.
Okay, you've heard us talk about having an anonymous tip line?
Yes, I have.
Well, guess what? About a week and a half ago, Curtis, this anonymous tip line went active. We've had over a dozen tips come in so far just in that short period of time, which tells me several things. I'm going to give out that number, by the way. It's 844-251-0644. Again, 844-251-0644. What's important about that, just in the few short days or a week or so, week and a half that this has been live, the response we have says that there are people who care and that there are people who have been looking for a way to get involved with the community. And so this podcast is no different. Having an anonymous tip line is no different. There's posters around town. You can see the QR code and even scan it from your phone off our website. And so there's ways to get involved, whether you want to do that out in front or from behind the scenes. It really doesn't matter. There's ways to engage, and I think that's the key, Curtis. I think we're allowing people an opportunity to engage. Everybody wants to feel like they have a right to stand up and defend their own community, and sometimes you just have to create a way for them to do that. And I feel like that's really what Echo Stop means, and I'm confident that we're making that progress. I've seen the progress in the short days. Our officers are going to be more visible. We're going to harness this technology not just as a scientific tool, but as a way to replace some of the response time that might have lagged in the past because of trying to narrow things down. And now we're going to be more precise. This is truly what intelligence-led policing is. It's very strategic, but our community should recognize they're going to see our officers more present. They're going to see our officers more present more frequently. And this in itself is not only going to help keep them safer, it's also going to help our perception improve, because that in and of itself is a deterrence and a prevention for that matter.
It is, Kevin. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I think more than anything, again, it goes back to it truly takes all of us to really address crime in our community and creating a safer environment, because we can say it all day until we're blue in the face. Law enforcement can't do it by itself, man.
Well, I agree with that statement there for sure. But I don't think it's about, shifting blame. This isn't a blame game.
No.
I don't think this is about police saying, hey, this is not our fault, or the community saying this is not our fault. That doesn't matter. What I think this conversation really is about is, can we do something? Are we in a position to do something? And what can we do to help? How can we help? And I feel like that's what this conversation is really evolving into, is what role can everybody play? Law enforcement has a pretty defined role, but we can push the boundaries even a little bit on that in areas that we may not have normally pursued, because what we've done in the past is not necessarily working the way we want. There is an issue that we have to deal with, and we are dealing with that violence issue, but I think we're getting creative, we're getting outside the box, and we're really using these four corners.
But you know why? Because we're not in traditional times. We're in untraditional times. There's no normal in society. We've learned that from the last couple of years with COVID. But what we have to do is create a normal that everyone feels comfortable with, that says that we are working closely together with our community, with our citizens. Citizens are working closely with law enforcement, all with the focus and goal of trying to make lives better and safer for everyone.
Well, and we certainly are working closer just sitting here at the podcast. Now, you've taken up more than your share of the table, but I've allowed you to do that because you seem to.
I'm going to let you get by with that one. Go right ahead. Okay.
But anyway, we're working together, which is really cool. And we understand what our purpose is. And I think what that represents is when we share with the community what the purpose is and what the tools are that are available, the resources, the services. We're going to have shows where we're going to have some individuals coming from some of those resources.
Yeah, we've got great partners in the community. I mean, we have our public school system. They've been outstanding. They've been partners with the police department for many years. We have AltaPoint. We have Veterans Recovery. We have the Mobile County Health Department. We have a number. I can't name all the different partners we have, but it tells me that we have something that everyone desires, and that is coming together and coming up with solutions as a community, taking the holistic approach to addressing crime.
And I think you bring up the school system. Certainly, they've been, historically great partners with us here. They're certainly partnered up with us on this Operation Echo Stop to really curb youth violence in the community and violence in general. But they represent a community within the community. When you think about the school system and you think about the community of students that are in the school system, the community of teachers and instructors that are in the school system and administrative staff and so forth, there's a community within community. And as we work to resolve conflicts in that community, we're actually teaching and preventing violence from happening down the road as we resolve those things in more peaceful ways at a younger age.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I used to tell people all the time that a school is no more than a community within a community. Anything that happens on the outside of the community happens on the inside as well. So it's important to understand that what the school system deals with are real challenges, but these are not just the challenges of the school system, it's the challenges of the community.
Well, speaking of challenges, I've challenged our podcast listening audience to send in emails, and guess what? We have an email. We actually have one that we're going to read to you. It's from Denise in Mobile, and Denise is asking, why or how do we think this podcast is going to help gun violence in Mobile? Curtis, I'm going to let you start with that one. I've got some thoughts, and Denise, thank you for sending that in. But Curtis, what are your thoughts on this podcast and what impact it's going to have on gun violence in Mobile?
What I think, Kevin, is going to have is this. I believe it's going to have an opportunity or open up opportunities for people to actually really share thoughts that they may not have had an audience to share it with. But at the same time, those thoughts are going to be driven with solution, or there will be a response with a solution to that question or that concern. Because what we want to get, or what we want to hear the problems, but we also want people to understand that we're here to try to come up with solutions to those problems. And to come up with solutions require all of us to work together to come up with those solutions.
Well, I think what's interesting about this question, and I want to thank Denise for sharing that question with us, is you have actually demonstrated what our hope is with this podcast. We now have a conversation. We now have somebody from outside this studio who has taken a vested interest in this, whether it's out of concern or just of interest or whatever, hopefully all of those things. This person has taken this time to send us this message because they want to have a dialogue. And so, Denise, thank you for sending that email. The question in of itself represents the value of this podcast. How are we going to use this podcast to curb gun violence? We're actually going to enlist the help of people in the community. We're going to motivate the police department to go even further than they've already gone, and they've gone in great lengths to do this. And we're going to utilize and harness really the power of the community as itself, which the police department is just a part of the community, to move forward. And so in that email question in itself, and I'm so glad it was the first question because it really goes to the core of what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. We are here to hold hands and partner with the community in a way that we can form relationships, even if we disagree on some things, even if we can't all agree on every single aspect of what our approach needs to be. We just need to have an approach that works, and it has to be effective.
What's the definition of insanity?
Well, you don't want me to answer that because I am sitting in a studio with okay, Curtis, go ahead.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And we are all out of outcomes using that strategy that we've been using for a very long time. So now we are asking the community to come up, roll their sleeves up with us, and let's come up with new strategies to solve these problems that we have.
Yeah, and I think as we talk about that, let's talk about some of the places that the community can roll up their sleeves and get involved. You've got an upcoming event that you wanted to mention.
We do. We have a Stop the Violence community meeting Thursday, October 13th at 6 p.m. It'll be held at the Canaan Baptist Church at 863 Somerville Street here in Mobile. The Honorable Judge Naaman and Oliver Charles, he's the new president for the Bishop State Community College. They're going to be speaking. They're the guest speakers. They're going to be talking about violence and community, education, all these different things that a lot of people say sometimes are the barriers that create some of these problems. Well, we want to identify ways of removing those barriers, because if it requires us bringing people, educators out, talking to you about opportunities for betterment, and if that can help us solve some of the problems, it won't solve every problem, but hopefully it'll solve some problems for some people. So I'm hoping that this will yield a positive outcome, and a lot of people will show up for it.
Well, and I think that's the key. You hit on it. One of the most probably prevalent questions that I get asked when I'm going around to different events is, how can we help? How can we get involved? And I really have a simple answer for our viewers and anyone that's listening to this podcast. Just show up. If you don't know what your role is, if you don't know what you can bring to the table, but you have ideas, or you just have the drive to do something to make the place that you live as safe and as beautiful as it truly can be, then just show up. So there's an event coming, you show up. You actually have to do something to enable yourself to be part of the something that happens. And, we hear people say, see something, say something. I'd like to add to that, see something, say something, do something. And so show up to these events. If there's a community event in your neighborhood, come out. If you're looking for a role and you're not sure what that role is, we can help find places that you can sort of work with us in those different areas and find something that you enjoy doing, and also that will be fruitful in the way that you will see the benefit of it. What we want to happen is obviously to reach a point where we're the safest city we can be. And I don't know that ever stops, because I think we keep attaining for a higher bar. We aim for that goal where everybody should be able to walk out of their house to their mailbox and back again and feel safe. I don't feel like that's wrong. I feel like that's an honest, attainable goal. And it may take us a long time to get there, but it's also taken us a long time to get here.
Yes. This podcast is all about asking the tough questions. We want the tough questions. Be prepared for the answers. But the questions need to be tough questions, because we have tough issues that we have to tackle. But it truly takes all of us saying, hey, I'm not going to be too thin-skinned to hear what I have to hear, because if it's going to help me be better, then guess what? I need to hear it, right? And that's even for law enforcement. We want to hear whatever you have to say about law enforcement. If there's anything negative to say or positive, we want to hear those things, because guys are working really hard to try to make the city as safe as it can be. But I keep saying, and I'll continue to say, that law enforcement cannot do it by itself.
No, Curtis, and I really want to say that it's a hard job.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily just talking about law enforcement.
No.
Even living in a community where there's problems that need to be solved and you want to solve those problems, let's just say that that's a hard problem. But we can do it. It truly takes all of us. And when we put the right resources, when people stop just kind of really looking at the problem and wondering how to solve it, and actually show up to some of these events and really involve themselves. And then we bring in the final piece of that, which is we consistently work at it. We don't just do it one time, one place, that we consistently show up and we do these things over and over again. We will make a difference. I've already seen the difference. We've had, again, we talked about the tip line. There's a number. It'll be up on our page as well. But, we've seen the successes from that. We've also seen the successes from our events. We've seen the success from the technology that we've utilized. But even more, we've heard the great stories from the officers who have been quick to respond,
right,
who have seen great things happen. And look, violence is not something that should happen in any community, but we have to have a plan. We have to be able to address it, and we have to be honest about what's happening so we know what the problem is. And I feel like this podcast is a place to do that. It's a safe place to do that. And we really want to hear what everyone else has in that regard. But I got to tell you something else, Curtis.
What's that, Kevin?
We are almost out of time. We are running to that point of the podcast where it's time to wind things down. So I want to remind our viewers, first invite you, please. This is an open door podcast. We would love to have you follow us every week at 8:30 on Friday mornings. We would love to see you send in email questions to echostoplive@gmail.com. We'd love to see you at our community events.
Absolutely.
It truly takes all of us, Curtis. This is all we have for now, and we can't wait to see you, hear from you. and all of the other good things in the weeks to come. But we'll be back next Friday at 8:30 in the morning. Thank you, Mobile, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Have a great weekend.